So I think we're going to see a big jump in prices early next year, mid next year, late next year, but it's going to happen.
As a business owner, we get comfortable. Most people get comfortable. If you have something that works, kind of just stick with it. Let's not, risk too much.
You can't do a good deal with a bad guy.
Hey friends, today we're in the studio with the founder, broker owner of the #1 real estate team, or teamerage as he would call it, in Northern Palm Beach County, Jeff Lichtenstein with Echo Fine Properties. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about some news, some mortgage rates, inventory, technology. We're going to be talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and how they can change your business and your life.
And your world.
And your world. And we're going to be talking about how Jeff is winning in this market and how his numbers are now tracking for greater than 2022. Jeff, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, it's fun to be here.
Absolutely.
A lot of liquid. I got espresso, water, the whole 9 yards. I like the branded espresso.
That's right. And we even offer Elfagatos here. So those of you that know. So anytime you want to stop and get an Elfagato, just swing by. Well, one of the things I love about you, Jeff, is that you're always a visionary. You're always forward thinking. You're always implementing like technology, always innovating. And on top of that, you're just a great person, family man. And
my mother agrees with everything you're saying, Ryan.
Yeah, I talked to her before.
Yes.
So she told me kind of what to say. But no, I agree with that 100%. So, Jeff, tell me a little bit about Echo Fine Properties, the way it sits today, and a little bit about what you guys are doing in the market.
Well, Echo started as it was about me as a single agent. That's where the teamerage comes from, because we're really a combination of a team and an individual agent. So when it was about me, I used Jeff Realty and had that URL, and that was the branding, and we were a small team. And as we got to a more past 5, 6, 20 people, I wanted to do a name change. Because if, Keller Williams, Ryan Serhant, they're all names of individuals, but then you're always working under that particular person, and that person's the star. So the name change to Echo was part of that, and there was a lot of different meaning behind the name. Echo Fine Properties, about the echolocation from a dolphin, and we use a lot of advanced technology to find homes for our buyers and buyers for our sellers. But teams also work in groups. So we're not a dolphin is not a solitary animal like a turtle, for example. It works together. They're fun, they're smart, and they work together in a pod, and we work together in a team. So our agents have a real team behind them, paying for all the marketing materials, all the lead generation, and all the communication. So our staff ratio is pretty high compared to most brokerages out there.
So I just got to read your numbers because it's unbelievable. So 2022, with 89 agents, closed over $423 million with 414 units. Year to date, and this is probably about a month old, $323 million with 378 units, tracking for over $500 million and over 500 sides. Pretty impressive. Your numbers are up this year from last year, whereas a lot of realtors are down. There's a lot of realtors getting out of the business. Brokerages closing. How are you winning in today's market?
I think it's a lot of long-term planning. It's we're looking at what we're doing 2-3 years from now, and doing that from 2-3 years ago today. And a lot of those things, we're really good at training agents and getting them up to speed, and working with them on their individual game plans, and a lot of company types of things that we're doing with our website. We just launched a whole area page, for example. That searches by subdivision community needs that we've been working on it's been about like 2.5 years. There's a whole statistics thing that we're coming out with that has been in the works for about a year. That's going to be mind-blowing. That'll be on the homepage, but becomes a one-stop shop and reasons for people to come back. So it's investing a lot within the business, not just tucking it away, and a broker has that responsibility. And then it's a lot of growth that we've done from within, and empowering people on the management side of our business. And that's where I think you really start to level up your growth, and it becomes art of delegation and some of those things.
And how many agents do you have right now?
We're around 100.
100 agents?
Yeah.
So what I love about the tech that you've developed in your website is that right now a lot of agents, when their clients are looking for that information that you were just talking about that's on your website, they go to a Redfin, they go to a Zillow. The issue there is if you're pointing your clients to a Zillow to get the information, then they're just one click away from losing them.
Right.
Same with Redfin. So tell me a little bit more about like the tech that you developed. You touched on it there a little bit, but tell me a little bit more about it.
Well, a lot of it's thinking like the customer is thinking. So the customer is, they think they're thinking, right away I want to be in Palm Beach Gardens and I want a 4-bedroom, home, 3-bath between, $1.5 million and $2 million, or 800 to $1 million, or whatever. And then they're calling on a particular property and they're in the wrong parking lot. So if you can get to think, okay, they're really thinking more lifestyle first. Like what it's, if I talk to a customer and I'm in the field, I'm like, Ryan, tell me about you. Tell me about how you live. And well, we want to be close to the beach, but we don't need to be on it. And we want to have, we want to be 5 minutes to, to all the action. And we both ride horses. Now I'm learning about, okay, I'm bringing that down to what communities are in there. And maybe there's only 4, communities. Maybe it's Ranch Colony if they want, if they want gated, or it's, Calusa if they want to be a little bit farther out. But they don't know that going in, what communities. They're just searching for homes, and it's reversing it. And it's all sorts of things. They're looking for data in there. They're looking for, what is the right home for me? Where do I want to be in that's going to fit my lifestyle first? And they're looking for statistics. They're looking for all sorts of information. And we can dive a lot deeper than a Zillow can or a Redfin can, because we're local and we understand the market. And then it's just designing and giving them the information that they want.
I love that community search page, and it's more like a questionnaire format. Versus...
Yeah, well, that's Echo Home Match. That's a dating website for your home, but it's there's 6 different pieces to it, but it starts with lifestyle in there, and it asks a series of questions, and then once it breaks it down within the computer, it's then bringing you to the right home that you want. So it's really matching you to where you want to be, but you don't know that at first. So people end up in the wrong. They're just searching listings. They're not really searching subdivisions and lifestyles. So it's all sorts of products that are making it think like the computer. And then we have our home economics guarantee, which is 57 promises on the listing side that we guarantee the client. So the client, when they're listing with us, they're getting they know what they're buying with us, and where they're listing with individual agents all over. Even if you're with a brokerage out there, you may have somebody else who doesn't do exactly what you do. We do it across the board because we're paying for it, and we have so we're giving everybody a consistent product that if the consumer really takes the time to look at it, they're not going to beat what we do because we're working more like a company in that regard.
So you got 100 agents. What are you seeing when you analyze all your agents right now? The ones that are really excelling in this market, the ones that are winning in this market, what are they doing different?
I've always looked for in people, whether it's somebody that we're bringing in on a managerial side or on a tech side or an individual agent. It's one, do you like them? Are they good? Are they good people? They have good heart in there, and they really care about the customer. Not everybody's like that, and they're a little drama at the same time. And then I look for drive and skill set, and then there's another piece though that I added, which is adaptability. And I started thinking about that during the pandemic. And I was talking to my daughter. She was at Dreyfus at the time. She's off at college now. And I said one day to her, Jade, how are you doing? And she's like, Dad, I'm very adaptable. I can work, by myself here, or I work great, in big groups at school. And other people, and some people didn't do well during the pandemic, but people who have a positive outlook and who want to do well. I also think it helps right now to be in the office. Yep. New people have to be in the office because there's so much collaboration. There's energy to get things done. There's ideas that you play off of. I think veteran agents who've been doing it a long time, someone's going to work at home, but there's always danger there that you get too complacent, and then all of a sudden you stop growing in a creative sense, and you lose it in there. So I think attacking it and always looking for the next thing, always looking for continuing education for yourself and keeping up with the times, and not being afraid of things.
I agree. And I'm totally with you on working in the office and having that type of collab environment. And you feed off each other's energy. Listen, this is a tough market. I mean, people are losing deals over little things. People are holding off. Rates are kind of high. Maybe I'm going to hold off. You're getting a lot of kind of, weird things going on. But we're all in the same boat. So when you're around other people who are also going through the same stuff, I was thinking yesterday, I don't know, it's been a super stressful week. We're very busy. Thank God, blessed for that. But it's just been like one of those weeks where you're just kind of getting beat over the head.
Well, I asked him, how are you doing? He's like, it was like hesitation. Like, good.
And I get professionally coached. I get coached through the core. And I get in my coaching calls like, hey, coach, I didn't even want to show up today. I was like actually thinking about not showing up. But I knew for sure by the time I got off that coaching call, just being around 3 other people that are going through the same stuff that I'm going through, I'd feel a lot better. And I did, because we're all kind of talking through it. We're all here in it together. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And like what you've built in your team and in your office, the agents come in and they all are just feeding off each other all day long and supporting each other.
It becomes competitive too in a good way. And when you're out there, and humans, and especially salespeople, are social. We're social animals, and we usually do better when we're with each other. There's certain professions that people I think work better alone, or they're more that they can do it better. Real estate's one of them, especially when you're new. There's so much to learn. It really helps to be present, and then if you know your team really well and you know all the players in there, then that synergy, getting things done or talking through a problem or coming up with a marketing solution to something, goes much faster.
Where do you get this whole innovation, mindset from? Because I've been working with you probably 7 years, maybe 7, 8 years. The entire time you are every year, you're constantly innovating, constantly changing. And I think as a business owner, we get comfortable. Most people get comfortable. If you have something that works, kind of just stick with it. Let's not, risk too much. And so that holds you back from like innovating. How do you set your mind to constantly risk, constantly innovate?
I think I was thinking about this recently, but I remember my kids a little bit, but my mom used to say, you could put Jeffrey in a corner, and he could just be fine. And I think it's imagination. Even when we look at our kids, you look at, what do they like to do and stuff. So I always just liked to, it was imagination and thinking about different things. So I think it kind of developed. It was just one of those things early on, with me that I never really thought about in there. I enjoy a lot of it. And then I think, and I write about this in the book. You get to stay in the book when you write a book, when you're on a program like yours. But one of the things was I was writing, how do you get your creative juices flowing? And I think what you get I think it's addictive. Once you get into a rhythm of it, one idea becomes another idea, and that leads to another idea. And then it can go at extremely fast rates. If you work with a really good art director, creative designer, when they get going on something, it's like they stay up all night, like it's manic in there to do something. And I think that's where sometimes I had a 2-year period of time where I turned everything off because I needed to implement what we already had on our plate. I didn't want to go to any seminars. I didn't want to go to anything. I wanted to be, because the creative thing was to implement what we had in front of us. Yeah. We have so much. So I go through different periods, of that.
I think the other thing that holds us back from innovation is delegation, not knowing how to delegate, because we can't do everything ourselves. So talk a little bit about delegation.
Which I also write about in the book.
You do?
There was 10 exercises. One was the art of delegation. So I've always done what I've named it staircase growth. And I was looking at sometimes when I'm working at home, I work in the dining room table, and there's these stairs that are when I look to my right. And that's kind of how we've always grown, one staircase at a time. So making sure we have one person support in that we need, and then you can grow to the next level, or however you're going to, you're bringing leads in, and that gives you the next capability. And right now we're moving at a much faster pace. I mean, since the peanut butter and jelly experience, we've started a commercial division. We've opened up an office in Stuart. We've opened up a joint venture with a title company. We've brought in Andrew Seifter as sales manager, and much more training. So all sorts of things are happening. But I think that it's recognizing when you have really good people around you and elevating, those people up into so that they can grow. And that could be an agent where, what do you need to grow to your business? So, my second year in the business, it was hiring an assistant. And then just in giving up things. And sometimes people want to be perfectionists at things, and you are going to be doing it yourself. You may be doing a better job yourself, but if you can delegate it and you can do that well, and you free up all these other things, and you can take 90% or 95% instead of 100, that's a much better game plan than doing everything yourself internally, because you're working at a much lower dollar rate per hour by doing that lower priced job yourself.
I agree. My mentor always taught me that, listen, if you can delegate it at 80%, if the person can do it at 80% as good as you, delegate it every single time.
Right. It just depends if you like to delegate. Some people are very happy where they're at, and they don't want to. I think both of us, we enjoy expanding it and moving at a fast pace. Not everybody does. And there's periods of my life where I don't want that going on, especially like when there were certain ages with my kids that I didn't want to, grow at a certain pace in there and have that organized chaos. So it depends where you're at in life and what you want, and if it's for you too.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this. How making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich can change your world.
The amazing success of the PB&J Strategy.
The amazing success of it. So tell me about the book.
So Hurricane Ian happened last year at this time in 2022 in October, I want to say, or late September. And our group organically just wanted to help. And I think everybody does when something happens. Oh, I want to do something, and you just don't, or you give some money. And those are all good things. But this was one of these times where we had, I had a lot of people, so I arranged a Zoom call. We had 20 people on the Zoom call. We played with some ideas. The first one didn't work out. And I went back into, more of a dictatorship where I worked with a few people in our office rather than, because I tried the collaboration thing, and we needed to make a decision because time was running out on something. And I didn't have we never planned for a backup plan, which was a thing I talk about as well. And came up with an idea, and it was an idea of somebody I knew who knew somebody in the Philadelphia area, which was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And the reason for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, they're easy to make. They're 450 calories, so it's a meal replacement, really. Comfort food that's comfortable. Yeah. And from a marketing standpoint, I thought we could get other people in the community involved, and it was weird and kind of fun. And then it was selling everybody on our team on this, which is like, hey guys, you're bringing Wonder Bread in, and you're getting Peter Pan and Welch's, and like, what? So, but everybody bought into it, or at least went on blind faith, and then it expanded, and then we got different subdivisions involved. We ended up making 25,000 sandwiches. You had helped, and we were on. Yep. The press covered it. We were on CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, cover of the Palm Beach Post, cover of TC Palm. Fox ran it nationally. We were scheduled to be on Good Morning America. We had Johnny Bench and Joe Namath get involved with PSAs and stuff. And it was scheduled giving, doing something for others, has all sorts of great things that come out of that. It brought people out of the pandemic at that time, which if you recall, where people were in isolation, people were lonely, and I saw people working together. It didn't matter what their political spectrum was. We had people who were 3 years old, we had people who were 95 years old. Make it, and the smell, it brought people also back almost to your youth. Mm-hmm. Or hey, it's mom or dad making a sandwich, or if you're in third grade, you're sitting at the lunch table with your friends. And then when you're actually out there delivering it, or you're making it together, that sparked ideas. It sparked creativity. It sparked, how do we implement this? Because we have to do this now. We can't build a website that's going to be done in 6 months. We can't where are we giving the sandwiches to? How are we going to make them? How do we get this there? How do we do all this stuff? And it all happened, like we did 2,000 sandwiches in 5 days. And I was coming back from the other coast on the way back and had the experience of giving it to people, and it really touches you, and gets your sparks going. Then how do you apply that then to other parts of your business? So there's other parts of our business that we're always like, well, you looked in 2 years ago, like, God, we didn't implement that. So the PB&J strategy is a compilation of all these things. It's like having a backup plan in there. It's, it deals with branding. It deals with implementation. Deals with deals with roadblocks. We had so many roadblocks to getting all these things done. It's like we came up with something called PB&J Jams, where we're going to do a party with a subdivision. So we go to Abacoa, for example, and we're get the community involved. But how do we throw that? And how do we convince an agent there? Like, am I going to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with people? Is that really, but then once they got there and you get through all these different obstacles, how do you, if you can't get the clubhouse, what else can you get? Can you do it in your driveway? How do you get the word out? So it was interesting roadblocks, but then that applied to our regular business.
Yep. So listen, if anybody hasn't picked this up, pick it up, because it's not just about the story. The story is a great story. It's a great story.
It was like one of my favorite things in my life.
But the way Jeff wrote it was, it's super easy with big titles, big fonts.
And there's pictures.
The chapters are like 2-3 pages. I love this. Is like
there's a couple that are 1-page chapters.
For somebody who has ADD, it's an easy book to read.
Well, that's a salesperson has ADD. So you're looking at Who Moved My Cheese. That's kind of how it was in that vein. It's basically a 1-hour read. There's an audio book that we just did, so you can read it. The audio book. There's an ebook. There's a hardcover book. There's so there's every version of it.
And then the challenges at the end of each chapter, it challenges you to
There's 10 exercises, but then there's 72 challenges. Yep. So the idea was, back to implementation, to get something out of it, that you actually are doing it. So you get it. We have a website, which is pbjstrategy.com, or it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those places.
When I read the book, I think about a couple different things. I think about how we all have great ideas, but so many times it's just hard. It becomes such a mountain to implement it that you just don't do it. But in the book, you teach about that. You teach about innovation, creativity, branding, implementation, giving back. But then it also brings in teamwork. It brings in culture, because through this whole process, you built like this culture, all your agents, and then the communities and the
culture was there in our group already. So it goes back to having the good people, and that want to do this type of thing. But then everybody was like, oh, it's great team building. And I'm like, well, that wasn't meant for, but then I kept getting the same thing. And I thought about that. It really was good. But giving back and finding something that you're really interested in, then that builds your culture, automatically.
Yep. And even if it's something not small, for anybody just to implement it, and give back to your community, get people involved, it just gives some great strategies. So I love this book.
The audio book too was a guy. It was Rock Bordenive, and he was a short sale. It was a divorce case. It was the nicest divorce people of all time, and it took over a year to sell. It was one of these 2011 short sales when everything was falling apart. But he had a recording room, and he's a voiceover guy. He does like a lot of stuff for Monday Night Football, ESPN. Mm-hmm. So I contacted him, and he just did a reading for it, and he's amazing. But it was somebody who I did business with as a client who ended up doing the audio version, which is kind of cool.
Is that going to be on Audible, or where?
Yeah. He just finished it up, so next week it's on Audible. But I like the audio version better, and it's easy. It's just easy to digest.
Nice, cool. Looking forward to that. Tell me about Grandpa Jerry. You opened the book with Grandpa Jerry.
Well, my grandpa was a product of the Depression, and was always guarding his bread. And that's how they were. He went to law school, couldn't make a living as a lawyer. His father was a tailor who had immigrated to the United States and got a job selling buttons, and then zippers, and then he lost his job selling zippers because the World War II occurred and had to go back to buttons, and he had medical issues and everything. But he was a kind of a not a big personality guy, very straight, and he was a sayings guy. And some of it was from Marshall Fields. Give the lady what she wants. Keep it simple, which is on his tombstone, actually, in there. And so there were really less, like, you can't do a good deal with a bad guy, which I've always, if I'm dealing with a listing client and I don't like them, they're not, you're going to get bad referrals. It's going to be a negative energy situation. It's hard enough when you're, so pass on stuff like that.
Right.
Pass on having an agent who's going to bring drama into the office. I mean,
100%.
there's one thing about problem solving and let's talk about it. There's stuff happens. We make mistakes, grow from that, but you don't need to have a crazy thing and then and that's where toxic, it really happens in our industry more than others because of that. So they're just principles that I learned from him in his business. Treat the client right. He was in his business, we were in the textile business. He had a big inventory and stuff, and just work like a dog, on it.
I love that. That was one of my favorite parts of the book. Your grandma, that saying, you can't do a good deal with a bad guy. So true, so true. I'm with you 100%. We're like that here with our culture too. We don't put up with negativity or bad attitudes. It doesn't happen, And if we hired somebody on mistake and they have a bad attitude, then they're going to have to go.
Well, usually they'll weed themselves out because they go to gossip with somebody and there's nobody to gossip with.
Yep, exactly. Tell me a little bit about leadership. I mean, what would be your advice? And I mean, one of the great things that you're a great leader for your organization. I mean, what would be like one piece of advice you could give somebody as they're scaling their business or starting to grow their business from maybe a small team, 1 or 2 guys, to maybe a larger team?
They're not all like you. So I like to go. I've had parts of my life where I wanted to go, and I saw an agent the other day when I first started, John Nugent, and John said to me, he was by my office. He knocked on the door. We were talking outside. He goes, "I remember when you started. I was in at 7 in the morning, and you said you were in at 4." I was in at 4. And I had to dial back and remember that. He goes, and you came to my office and you said, I won't use the word I used. And he goes, what's wrong? He goes, I said, I lost a listing. And he goes, you lost a listing and you're upset about that at this hour and going crazy? And I was that competitive with it. Not everybody's like that. So you can't, don't mold everybody like yourself. Mold them into what they're good at and what their strengths are, and don't try to make something into something that they're not. Recognize what their talents are and what their goals are. Different people in different times of their life also are going to have different goals based on what's going on, That's right. What age they're at, where they want to be.
Yep. And lastly, on Echo, where do you see Echo Fine Properties 5 years from
now? $3 billion in sales, and throughout Florida. I don't know if that'll be 5 years or that'll be 3 years, but that's where we're going. We'll open an office down south. We'll open an office in Wellington, Miami-Dade, some of those areas maybe later on. Those are seeds that we're thinking about right now. But commercial, we have a lot on our agenda to do.
Love it. Did you notice I asked him and he knew right away? He knew his vision.
But I didn't know that 2 years ago. So sometimes you go through a period where the kids were in the house, yep. And then you go through clarity of what you want, and a lot of it is we have good people in place to do a lot of this stuff.
Right. Yep. 100%. Let's talk a little bit about some news that's hitting the wires. So this is a great article. People are
the Bears won a game.
The Bears. They did. Yeah. So
I was at the Kansas City Chiefs Bears game out in Kansas City. Yeah, and it was a Taylor Swift game, and they were down 34-0 at halftime. It was not pretty.
Got good ratings though. Since Swiftie
that's what I heard.
All the Swifties watching.
Yeah.
People talk about the housing market like, oh, rates are high, the market's going to come down. Is the market going to crash? Well, Palm Beach County, Florida housing market, the median price of a home in Palm Beach County was $470,000 last month, up 9.3% from last year. So home values are going up. What do you think about that?
I think that where we live is just a unique place in the United States. Aspen is a unique place in the United States. I have a friend who's a financial guy out in Chicago, where I'm from. He was saying he had somebody's house that just sold for like $24 million, and they bought it for like $280, like in the 1990s. Like, so have you ever heard of that?
Great investment.
But I know what he's talking about. They're in Aspen, and there's limit. And I was in Aspen 10 years ago. We were going whitewater rafting, and I said to the tour guide there, it was on the van on the way out to the whitewater rafting. It's like, where do the people in Aspen, where do you live? He goes, well, 10 years ago, so that's like 20 years before, we all lived within Aspen. But now, we live in Basalt. We're 40 minutes out of town. And there was all this crazy construction if you go south of Aspen towards the highway, 45 minutes away towards Basalt. And that's what's going on here. If you go back and you look at population and you look at take Palm Beach County just as an example, the population was 576,000 in 1980. And so since air conditioning has happened, people moved to Florida. If you came from Ellis Island, in 1850 and I don't know if Florida was a state, but if there was air conditioning, people would have come here and it wasn't all swampland. So people want to be here for the lifestyle, the weather, the things to do, the taxes. There's lots of reasons, the airport accessibility, and then they have their relatives and their friends. I went to Kansas City, and the reason I went to Kansas City was, one, the Bears game, but the real reason was I had to get to my 50th state, which was North Dakota, which I did. I went to Fargo. So we went to Kansas City, and then we drove through, Kansas and Iowa and Nebraska, and then up to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and then through North Dakota. And in all those 7-8 states and Minnesota, you see corn. And you see corn silos and lots of different John Deere versions. Lots of green and yellow it's like the backdrop of, like, that's your accent colors. That's your throw pillow and all this other stuff. That's the corn silos in there. And we were in Fargo, and we go to a nice restaurant there and stuff that was kind of hip. And I said, what else is there to see in Fargo? And he goes, well, nothing much. And the average temperature was it's like 6 degrees, I want to say, in January. Yeah, Jesus. There's nothing to do. And everything's, we went to the Mall of America in Minnesota. Yep. And giant mall, and it's fun. We had a mall day. But everything's indoors in there because there's nothing to do in the wintertime, where we have the beach and we have boating and we have, golf and pickleball, and, it goes on and on and on outside, and you can wear shorts outdoors when you eat in January. Yeah. So that's Florida. And we're just drawing that in here, and there's very little. The pioneer stage of the market's over. It's just like Aspen. There's no land left to build on, and there's a wealthier component in there. So, when we moved here in 2000, Abacoa went through 6,000 homes, and there was no Marisol, there was no Mirabella, there was no San Matera, there was no, Frenchman's Reserve, there was no Jupiter Country Club, there was no Old Palm, there was no Bears Club. You could go on and on and on, with that. And now it's done. So what's going on in the market right now is, we've kind of been at a stalemate, is the way I think about it. And the inventory is extremely low, but interest rates have went way up, from 3 to nearly 8. You know that number obviously better than me, and the prices are not going down. The reason they're not going down in a tough market is there's no new inventory that can be replenished, that is replacing, but the demand of people moving here is going up, and it's going to continue to go up at a higher rate, especially when the market switches. So I think if you say, is this a good time to buy? It's kind of like, let me wait till till the prices go down or they stabilize. Well, they stabilized. Now what happens? The interest rates are up, but inflation is way down. It's done. The reason rates are up is to bring inflation down.
Right.
And now we're in that 3 percentile. And the minute we get into that 2s, at some point, and we've got to do it because of our borrowing power, from all the interest we owe is a $30 trillion deficit, the rates will go down. And you know what's going to happen when they get into the mid-5s. Yep. It's going to be bedlam.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy. Actually, that was another news article I want to bring up. Barbara Corcoran says houses prices are going to go down, are going to go through the roof. Here's one. This is what she says. Sellers don't want to move from their home because they don't want to take on higher interest rates, she says. And all buyers are too afraid because they're getting less house for the price. So you got a standoff going on, but things are changing. Corcoran believes that there's a major swing in real estate coming soon when interest rates drop. The minute those interest rates come down, all hell is going to break loose and prices are going to go through the roof, she said. Right now, sellers are staying put. They are not going to stay put if interest rates go down by 2 points. It's going to be a signal that everybody's going to come back out and buy like crazy, and the house prices will likely go up by 20%, she said. We could have a COVID market all over again.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, especially here. And I heard a 20% number. Maybe that's accurate. And it's this guy. It's the Precious. And so everybody right now is Gollum. I got my 2.85% interest rate. I'm not giving that thing up for anything. I'll rent the house out. I'll do whatever. I got to hang on to the Precious. But when you get to 5.5, it's like, there's pent-up demand that's going on right now every day. There's pent-up demand where somebody wants to downsize. Somebody has a life event. There's college kids who've been renting or staying at home, and they're building equity up. And there's people who are in their homes who'd like to move, who are really capitalizing on this 3% Precious interest rate. But over time, that pent-up demand, they want to move on. The kids are getting bigger. The 2 and 4-year-old, who 2 years ago were a newborn and 2 years old, they have bigger toys all of a sudden, and the 2-bedroom house isn't working so well anymore. And so you're going to have, and so if prices go up 20% and your interest rate goes down to 5.85 or whatever, you'll be back. Oh, I should have bought when prices weren't. So I think we're going to go right back, especially in Florida, because of the inventory problem that we have. And it is, you think it's bad now. There's no, Alton will be sold out. There will be no relief. In when you go south to Boca, Boynton, it's all out west. There's still room, and there's a lot still in the tradition area, but they'll just jump their prices up. Right. So I think we're going to see a big jump in prices because you're taking all that pent-up demand that's here, people moving down. They're going to start, once they start moving, especially up north, and they're freed up to go, it's like, the next person out of the cage that's going. So I do see bedlam coming, like Barbara Corcoran said. It's just a matter of when the interest rates go. And that could happen, sometime, early next year, mid next year, late next year, but it's going to happen. It just has to.
Yep. Yeah, we're seeing a couple things on the lending side right now. We're seeing a lot of accidental landlords, where it makes sense. Like if you're sitting on a 2% loan and you're sitting on an $800,000 house and your payment's $2,000 a month, it's like, why wouldn't you rent it out? You can rent it out for $5,000 a month and you can make $3,000. I mean, the margins are huge. Like it doesn't even make sense to sell it unless you need the cash. So we're seeing a lot of that going on. On the interest rate side, with rates being so high, I mean, rates are basically at 8% now and probably going a little bit higher. So we'll have to see kind of where that shakes out. But we're still seeing people buy. But the conversations right now with high rates are forecasted appreciation is over 5% in Palm Beach County. It's probably, we looked at it. They said it was going to be 5% last year. Right. It ended up being 9%. So let's just use 5%. On a $500,000 house, if you wait 1 year to buy, it's going to be $525,000. 1% higher in your mortgage on a $500,000 house, assuming 20% down, you're looking about $300 a month in interest. So would you rather pay $3,600 extra on your rate, but to save the $25,000 in the appreciation of the house?
Exactly.
So you have this kind of thing where we're running numbers to say, okay, yeah, rates are high. We can always refinance the rate, but also the prices are not going down. And it's because there's a supply issue.
Yeah, and you just have to explain that to the customer. You give great visuals on that. And the thing I like about you, too, is you'll jump on and partner up with an agent, too, and explain that to the customer. And a lot of times that helps close a deal that we have on our end.
Yep. And it's also the affordability too. When we're looking at like high rates, it is pretty significant. I think I ran this slide the other day when I was doing a team training, but like on a $500,000 house today versus like a little over a year ago, like January of 2022, rates were 3%. Now they're 8%. So on a $500,000 house in January 2022, your payment would be about $2,100 a month. But to qualify for that payment, you need to make about $6,600 a month, or about $80,000 a year in income. So if you made $80,000 a year, you could buy a $500,000 house, assuming 20% down, decent credit score. Today, at 8%, the payment would be $3,600. So you would have to now make over $120,000 a year to qualify for that same house. And then that's the problem, is like the income is not tracking for where the rates are. So that's also dampening.
Well, we have another negative going on right now, but I think that will turn, you got to look in the future. Again, you have to have some vision with this stuff. And most people, when they're buying and or selling, they don't have the vision for it. And I think if you can help them with that vision, it helps. And talk about insurance. And, the insurance rates are much higher than they were, 3-4 years ago. But it's mostly, there's bigger storms. I mean, that's tracking, everybody's aware of that. But if you ask the insurance people, 80% of the problem or more was litigation that was going on. And I call it a self-inflicted wound that, we, the consumers in our homes who were getting calls about, let me find a loophole so you can get a free roof, we're taking advantage of that. And then going to the lawyer was doing a lawsuit, and these were just piling up in there, and it caused there's consumer protection. In this case, it's almost business protection. The insurance companies needed protection from the consumer and from the roofing contractor and from the lawyer in there. And there's a lot of, I know there was like 100,000 lawsuits that were filed when the new laws went into effect in the spring. And there's probably some more that needs to be done. But that may take 18 months to work itself through the system. But that should curb a lot of the insurance problems that we have. Yeah. And what's going on with the condos and those issues and the reserves and the needed safety things that need to be taken place. That's going to be done at the end of 2024. And it's going to bring a lot of cost certainty down. Yep. So I think you're going to see prices really stabilize, because I think you'll see insurance go down, or there'll be people who are avoiding buying condos right now will jump back into those markets, because it's going to be a lot easier to insure a condo because everything has to be up front.
Right. Yep. I agree. I mean, we're seeing right now I
think it's a bigger story than people realize.
It is, yeah. I think it's a good thing. I mean, we're seeing right now HOA dues on condos going up, but we're also now seeing a lot more condos passing full reviews, meaning that they have a full reserve budget set aside and reserves in the bank, right, and updated engineering reports.
You only have, every day that goes by, another report's getting in. There's only 14 months of that left.
Yep.
So the condo market, which has been harder to go through because of the uncertainty of it, it's now going to go to a complete certain with this added benefit of what you're buying when you go in there. It's not going to be some surprise assessment.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. Well, I think I'm ready to do some rapid fire. What about you?
Yeah, let's go.
All right.
We have a sip of water first.
I better get ready. So a couple of rapid fire questions, and we'll go ahead and wrap up. So in honor of your book, tell me, favorite peanut butter brand?
I think Peter Pan just sounds fun.
Go with Peter Pan.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm a Jif guy.
Yeah, Jeff.
I mean, I'm into the Publix organic right now.
Are you chunky or not chunky?
I used to be chunky, but now I'm smooth.
I mean, I'm totally chunky.
Yeah.
But when we were making the sandwiches, it was all smooth. And the reason, and you put the peanut butter on both sides as your base so it doesn't get wet. But the reason that we did it with cream is that people who had dental problems, and when you get into homeless situations, you have people with dental problems, you give them a chunky and you get in trouble.
Yeah.
but people want to make it the way they want to make it. So we had to curb a lot of that.
Favorite hobby?
I like to snorkel. I like going out like by Coral Cove and just looking at nature and relaxing in the ocean for an hour. My mom is petrified that I'm going to get eaten by a shark. I always tell her, it's like 10 shark deaths a year. I'm much more worried about Irving from New Jersey on the roundabout getting me.
Favorite pizza place?
Oh, well, in Chicago, it's Barnaby's. But Pusatteri's here does a mean Chicago thin crust pizza, the square pizza. And if you haven't had it, it's amazing. Have you been there yet?
No.
Oh, we have to go.
Where's it at?
It's right. It's 2 blocks from our new office. Where our new office is at 27 Southeast Ocean, right on Confusion Corner. So it's about 2 blocks from there, and it's all Chicago. It has Italian beef and the Vienna hot dogs and the electric piccalilli relish, and stuff. So we'll have to go. That new show Beefs. I don't know if you've watched that at all. Is that on Netflix? That was like a block from where my dad's office was. It was called Mr. Beef, which was this hole in the wall place that has Italian beef sandwiches.
Favorite sports team?
Oh, it's anything Chicago, but I'm a baseball fan at heart, so the White Sox. They're all Cub fans out there, but when you're from Chicago, it's either you choose one or the other. It's like the Red Sox and the Yankees, but much more intense.
Favorite business book or podcast?
Oh, the famous business book, How Making a Sandwich Can Change Your World: The Amazing Success of the Peanut Butter and Jelly Strategy. The best book I've read in a while is an audio book. That's a Malcolm Gadfly book that he wrote on Paul Simon, the singer. Mm-hmm. And Paul Simon's 81 or 82 years old, and it's on sustained creativity. And it's if you like Paul Simon music, it's great. But he gets into the whole creative process and how he stayed relevant in a creative fashion where a lot of people they stop learning. Yeah. And he takes different pieces from memory, or it could be something he learned growing up in Brooklyn and having different cultures. But then, he's been able to go to Africa and do different music, or does sonic music, or all these different different types of pieces that are every album's different. But it was a whole study really on the creative process and how you keep it going. Where like the Rolling Stones will do every album, it's all the same type of sound, but his sound's very different. And I thought it was a terrific book.
Nice. Lunch with one person, dead or alive?
Oh, Ben Franklin.
Why?
Talk about creativity. He's electricity. There's no United States without Ben Franklin going to France. There's no Declaration of Independence without Franklin really masterfully maneuvering that room. The way he learned, he had slaves in there, but he learned that was wrong. And then at the very end of his life, you can read letters to Vice President Adams and he had the abolition against slavery, and a million other, the lightning rod, the swivel. I don't know if he did the swivel chair, but everything is like there's all the electrics, the stove. There are all sorts of interesting things. But Franklin. That's a great book on Franklin. It's a long book, but just how he grew and kept innovating. He was a business person. He was an inventor. He wore all these different hats. I don't think there's been any American like him to that extent who had that type of good nature at the same. We've had some other people, but they're very controversial. He wasn't there. He was very, very different. So I think anything on him is fascinating.
Nice. Best business advice you ever received?
Best business advice I ever received. Well, two things from my grandfather. I'll bring my grandfather back into play. One of them is can't do a good deal with a bad guy. It's really good. It's really good. Business advice. I think that's a real good one.
Nice, love it. Favorite local restaurant?
Oh, I think there's so many good ones. There's a great Mexican restaurant called El Fagacito in off of Indian Town Road. I think Leftovers is really good good stuff.
Oh yeah, solid restaurant. And favorite vacation? So you've been to all 50 states.
Yes.
Now officially. That's awesome. So what's your favorite vacation destination, or maybe your favorite state?
I think in North America, my favorite place I've been is Vancouver and Victoria Island. I think it's just pretty cosmopolitan. Victoria's its own thing. The Bouchard Gardens, are amazing. I went to Iceland. I did a semester in London, which was a great experience, and then went to Iceland before anybody went to Iceland by myself, and that was I just thought a magical place. I wanted to do the Galapagos is like my that's the place I want to go to most.
Well, Jeff, this has been great. Thanks for sharing just so much with us today. Your book is excellent. If we'll put the link below, so if anybody wants to check it out or check out the website, definitely pick it up. It's a great business book, a lot of good stuff you can implement. And, just thank you so much for all you do, Jeff. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.